lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to be talking about a book that I have been so excited for the release of, and that's Epitaphs from the Abyss. Not necessarily was it just this title, but this is the return of EC Comics, licensed by none other than Oni Press. Super stoked that this is back. Can't wait to talk about this. Before I get into it, I want to remind everybody, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Check out some of the rest of the dope videos on the channel. Hit the bell icon so you're notified every time we drop new vids. Now let's jump into this. EC Comics has a long history in comic books. You know, they produce some of the, I think, some of the best comic books of their day. Some of the biggest talent, some of the best talent to ever put pencil to paper were on these books back in the day. You know, few names: Wally Wood, Al Williamson, Frank Frazetta come to mind, just off top. Jack Davis. It's cool to see that, somebody decided, hey, let's license, the brand, basically, because that is, they didn't necessarily license a specific title, because this wasn't a title from any of the original EC books, but the branding is great, the title is great. I just love everything about this. And what a great cover by Lee Bermejo. This shit is unnerving when you look at it. And let me tell you, this book did not disappoint at all. This is going to be their horror, anthology book. And with what I can only assume is going to be rotating creators. And we got 4 stories in here. We got Killer Spec by Jay Holtham, Jorge Fornes, and Dan Jackson. We got Senator by Chris Condon, Peter Krause, Michelle Madsen. Family Values by Stephanie Phillips, Phil Hester, Travis Heimel, and Marisa Louise. Us versus Us, Brian Azzarello, Vlad Legosev, and Brittany Peer. And letters by Richard Starkings and Comic Crafts Tyler Smith. And the lettering is super important in this because they use the exact fonts from the old EC books, which just adds to this awesome aesthetic of what they're going for. We got this opening page by Dustin Weaver with our narrator, the Gravedigger. Just phenomenal. Much like, the Tales from the Crypt stuff. We got that. He even talks about tonight's offerings and giving you just a little taste of what each one is. Like Killer Spec, a real warning for anyone who ever wanted to get packaged in Hollywood. Senator brings dread to the steps of the American Capitol, and one suburban family goes to pieces, lots of them, in Family Values. And finally, Us versus Us puts a flame to the last fraying threads of humanity that holds us together, and then the fun really begins. Great opening sequence. I love, this first story. You got this guy, he's talking about, like, the scariest thing a writer ever faces is a blank page staring at them. He's trying to think of what to write. You can see the anger in his eyes. And he's at some coffee shop, and I got an oat milk latte for Kevin. And he's just like hating everybody, right? All these posers, pretenders, sitting in a coffee shop, so publicly writing. But it's all just as an exercise in narcissism. Their mediocrity is blocking my creativity. So blaming everybody else, right? Calling them hacks and stuff. And, he makes his way back, to his house where he's living. And he talks about, like, why is he wasting his time communing with these lesser writers? He wants to be among the greats. One day they'll recognize his genius and his brilliance when he finishes that masterpiece. And he comes back and his roommate, and he has such disdain for him too. And he comes up, he's like, yeah, I wrote a script. And he's so taken aback. He's like, you did? And even has like a little stain of ketchup on it. And he's just like, oh my God, this guy doesn't even recognize talent, even though he's like, the roommate is so nice to him. And he's like, oh yeah, I trust you. I would love for you to read it because you're the best. He thinks it's going to be really bad and painful, but then you can see the turn, right? Where he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is great. So what does he do? He's like, I can't let him take it. So he steals the script and he murders him. But the story's not going to end there. Typical EC Comics fashion. So now he's got the breakthrough script and things are going to be good for him, right? Well, he thinks he killed Dylan, and he realizes, like, it even said, the ending's what you leave them with, what they're going to remember. I couldn't have gotten this far without Dylan. He'll always be with me. He really helped me stick the landing. I love that. It's just mailed with the script. Crazy, dude. And then we get senator, and we got these like, conservatives going at it. And so we see that like this Laura Smoltz, right? Like she's, pro-choice conservative, and she's like playing both sides of the political fence. So this reporter is going to go, kind of see what she's all about, goes to question her. And like she's even trying to prove to her, like, how are you going to flip-flop, man? Like, you keep shifting positions on women's rights. And so when she shows her, you can see that something in her clicks, and she's like almost having like an adverse reaction to hearing this, where she's like, the information she's receiving doesn't click with what she knows. And so these guys take her away, but she's gonna, our intrepid reporter is going to take a taxi, follow her there. These creepy guys, right this way. They take her in, she goes inside, and this guy who, I don't know why, but kind of reminded me of James Gunn. She's looking for the senator, and this guy takes her downstairs and is like, oh, is this where you change hearts and minds then? Any thoughts on what may have changed her mind on abortion? And so this is all, like, whenever, he's like saying, abortion's not a conservative ideal. A conservative must have conservative ideals. It's like, we pluck it out. So what does he mean by they pluck it out? You're about to see, because once we flip this page, we see what they did to that senator. Lobotomy. I see your issue, and we've got to pluck it out. But she would soon learn to understand it as something else. Loyalty. And I love that, as she, was saying, the dread gave way to a new emotion, a feeling as American as apple pie. The feeling was called terror, but she would soon learn to understand it as something else, loyalty. Next, we get this awesome story by Phil Hester, which I am such a huge fan of. And this guy, there's a countdown. We see people chained up, right, to the chair, tied up to a chair. And this guy is like, the cold metal burns in his hand, transforming a father, a loving husband, and a financier into a killer. So he's basically, these guys have him at gunpoint. They're forcing him. He's got to kill somebody. And who does he choose? We got the wife saying, if he doesn't kill himself, he's going to have to kill one of them. And so he's like, should I be the one? I'm their father. You have to choose someone before the timer runs out, Scott. So you can see the sweat just dropping. He's like, are you going to kill one of our children? You're going to kill me? And he has, they're telling him, you got to choose one member of your family, or the men with rifles will kill them all. Or he's hearing this, he hears in his head, choose to kill one member of your family, or the men with rifles are going to kill them all. So then the son's like, well, you can kill me. You can have a better son. And the mom's like, no. Like, you can't do that. And so then he starts like almost talking himself into it, saying, yeah, you do seem to have a hard time remembering the curfew. And so then he starts talking shit to his son. I mean, and the son calls him. I was like, yeah, and how many times his mom asked you to stop flirting with the girl at the cafe? So then he fucking smacks him. Then the mom's like, give me the gun, you piece of shit. And so now the daughter's saying, don't hurt mommy. And you see now he's puking, he's pissing himself. And the time just keeps winding down. I mean, what a crazy scenario to be put in, where you have to choose to kill one of your family members. And he doesn't know what to do. The mom is basically pleading with him, don't take the kids. And he doesn't know what to do. He's like, I don't want to. And she's crying. You have to. The cold, deadly steel seemed like a part of him, an extension of something dark that was waiting just beneath the surface of his skin. Did the gun create it, or had it always been there? And the clock winds down, and we see this dude that's just watching this, almost like a Red Room type thing, where he was gambling on who would die. And he's a family man. And then we see the guys, right? Now they're going to give him the choice, which is a crazy way to end it. And then we get the last tale. These guys, they just set this house on fire. And we get this like weird like creature like morphing out of the ground that's buried under there. And then we see again the guys from the cover, right? Like they're hunting them down. They come into this house, straight like mutant type people. Smell his fingers. Gasoline. You son of a bitch. That was our evening service, and you just incinerated families, people. And he's like, I didn't know there was anyone there. And then she calls them vaxxers. And your sin, which might not be a strong enough word. And he's like, we're alive. And this guy's like, well, I'd rather be dead. And he's like, yeah, okay, you will be. And so they infect him. And she's all freaked out. And they're like, yeah, death comes real fast after. And he's like, yeah, that wasn't a question. And she asked them, what's going to happen after we die? Oh, you go to heaven. Just kidding. We eat you. And that's how it ends. And then we get a great letter by Hunter Goranson, the president and publisher at Oni Press. And he gives us the lowdown of, getting this license, talking about, the history of EC Comics, what it meant to him, and kind of the influence that EC Comics has had on many things, including Jaws, Star Wars, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which it did. It had a heavy influence. Then we get this, kind of in honor and tribute to all those that inspired the legend that can never die, as it says, from 44 to 56 is when EC Comics was around. And we get MC Max Gaines, William Gaines, and a whole list of creators that were a part of EC Comics. Like I had mentioned, some before Frank Rosetta, Wally Wood, Al Williamson, Otto Binder, Bernie Krigstein, Frank Frazetta, just so much talent. Alex Toth, and the list goes on. Maureen John Severin. So if you've never read an EC Comics before, I highly recommend picking up some of those reprints and definitely sticking along and picking up this book. And, not only is Epitaphs from the Abyss going to continue, but we're going to have the new series debuting next month as well, Cruel Universe. Go pick this up, hit up your comic shop. You won't be disappointed. This was a fantastic issue. And, sometimes it's hard to take a flyer on a anthology book, right? They tend to not always do well, but I'm really hoping that these do well because I love EC Comics. I love what this book's about. It was awesome. Such a fun read. Hit that subscribe button. Click the bell icon as well so you're notified every time we drop a new vid. And on that note, I'm out.